So I started noticing something about high-end homes and what makes them feel expensive, and it goes beyond the big furniture. It's the small, intentional details, the thoughtfully curated touches that make a space feel elevated and collected. For this video, I went to Dollar Tree and a few thrift stores hunting for anything that had a hint of that high-end potential. And I'm turning these simple finds into designer-looking pieces inspired by Magnolia, Pottery Barn, Anthropologie, and more, all for under $20. No one would ever guess where they actually came from. Now grab your coffee, get comfy, and let's dive in. So one detail I notice in upscale homes are beautiful sconces, and you see them everywhere in brands like Magnolia, Our House, Ballard Designs, and CB2. But honestly, finding something like that at a thrift store, especially a pair that's in good shape, is surprisingly tricky. So instead of hunting for actual sconces, I started looking at things a little differently. Just anything with an interesting shape or structure that I could imagine turning into a sconce. At first, I was picking up things like platters and trays, trying to picture how they would work, but nothing really felt right. And then I came across these candle holders for 99 cents. Second I flipped one over, I could immediately see the potential. The votive holders became really sculptural, almost architectural in their form. It felt custom, like something you find in a designer space, not something sitting on a thrift store shelf. And honestly, for $2, it felt like a no-risk project. If it didn't work, it wasn't a big deal, and I wasn't ruining something expensive. That's one of the things I love about thrifting and Dollar Tree finds. You can experiment a little more and just try things. So when I got home, I decided to go for it and see if I could bring that vision to life. I took a couple of metal candlesticks from Dollar Tree that I had in my stash and bent off the cups to use as the candle holder on the new sconces. Then I used Gorilla Glue epoxy to bond the two pieces together. This stuff is really strong and worked perfectly and is needed for the metal-to-metal adhesion. I've also heard good things about the Dollar Tree epoxy, and I may try that next time. Now, after letting them dry overnight, I used the same epoxy to attach the D-rings to the back. And in hindsight, I probably should have done that first before attaching the front pieces. It would have made things a little easier, but it still worked out. I just leaned them carefully against a towel and a piece of wood while everything set, and they held perfectly. One of my favorite things about these is that I didn't even need to paint them. The original finish already had that slightly aged, high-end look, and the black cups blended in seamlessly. And the design is what really makes them stand out. It's all of those circle shapes that gives it that custom, almost vintage European feel. And for 99 cents, this is exactly what I meant by those small, intentional details. Something unexpected, a little creative, that completely elevates the space. This next piece was inspired by Magnolia Tabletop Media Stand. The richness of the wood against the metal makes it feel high-end and timeless, but even on sale it's $67, and I knew right away this was something we could recreate using Dollar Tree supplies. So I headed to Dollar Tree and picked up one of their crafter square wood pieces, and then I went over to the kitchen aisle and grabbed their metal napkin holders. These are one of those items I see in every Dollar Tree. But while I was in store, I kind of played around with the layout just to make sure the proportions would work. Once I saw it, I knew this was going to come together. When I got home, I laid everything out again and tucked the one napkin holder into the other to recreate the center, very similar to the Magnolia version. I kept it that way when I sprayed them so they wouldn't scratch each other when I put them together. So now that I was settled on the design, I started with the wood. I gave it a really good sanding because I wanted it to feel smooth and finished, not rough or craft-like. Then I stained it using a water-based wax. I originally used a gel stain, but I didn't love the tone. It wasn't rich enough. I wanted something deeper, warmer, more in line with that Magnolia look. While that was drying, I took the napkin holders and some wood beads outside and spray painted them using a gold metallic I already had. Normally I would use champagne bronze, which is a little softer and more muted, but I was completely out that day, and honestly, this gold ended up surprising me. It came out really beautiful, a little richer, a little more bold, and I actually think I like it even better for this piece. Once everything was fully dried, I flipped the wood piece over and hot glued the wooden beads to the bottom to create little feet. Then, using the same Gorilla Glue epoxy I used for the sconces, I carefully attached the metal pieces to the base. I just took my time with this part, making sure everything was aligned and being really careful not to get glue where it didn't belong. And what I love about this piece is not just how it looks, but how functional it is. It's surprisingly sturdy. It held my laptop, my tablet, my phone, no problem at all. You could absolutely use this as a media stand or a charging station on a desk. And the craziest part, this whole thing only cost me $6.25. It's not just pretty, it's actually really functional and something I'll use all the time. It's also super versatile. Here are just a few ideas of ways you can use it and style it. But what really makes a space feel high-end isn't just the statement pieces. It's the small, intentional details that pulls everything together and makes a home truly feel elevated. And the best part, some of the easiest ones come straight from Dollar Tree. With just a little paint and thoughtful styling, you can turn them into high-end looking pieces. So I wanted to show you a couple of super quick finds that I simply styled to give that soft, collected Magnolia feel. These are things you can still grab now, no heavy crafting required, just a quick spray paint and placement. For both the candle snuffer and the magnifying glass, I used champagne bronze by Rust-Oleum, and for the added detail on the magnifying glass, a rook piece from the Dollar Tree chess and checker set. And that's it. These pieces bring such a nice, curated, vintage touch and can really complete a vignette for just a couple of dollars. This one was a really simple flip, but I love how it turned out. You see, I had a brass pitcher I thrifted a couple of years ago. It had been holding lavender in my kitchen. But when I saw how Magnolia styled a similar pitcher with red flowers, I remembered some red stems I'd picked up on my last Goodwill bins trip for just 30 cents. Now paired with warm brass, the red really pops, and it has this unexpectedly upscale, cozy feel. Sometimes it just takes seeing the things you already own in a new way and repurposing them to make a little statement. This is the kind of small accent that quietly elevates a shelf or a tabletop without feeling over the top. For this next one, I want to focus on wreaths because high-end stores often style wreaths all year long, and a eucalyptus wreath doesn't feel seasonal at all. It works in any room, any time of the year. And you see versions of this in so many designer spaces. And it's a simple way to bring that collected, elevated look into your home. I actually have been missing a wreath since the holidays, and I wanted one that felt fresh but flexible. Last year, I found a grapevine wreath at the thrift store, and it's been hanging out in my garage waiting for the right moment. Recently, I came across a eucalyptus stems at the bins, which cost me about $1. I also had a few other stems on hand that I thought I might use, but in the end, I kept it simple. At first, I was going to use zip ties to attach everything, but I decided on floral wire instead. That way, I can easily take it apart later if I want to refresh it or tuck in some seasonal accents. I started by laying out the larger pieces first to see where everything would go and make sure the spacing felt balanced and I had enough. I paid attention to the direction of the leaves, making sure the fronts faced outward and everything was going in the same direction. Then I added a slightly different bunch to give the wreath more depth and dimension. One of the things I love about eucalyptus is how versatile it is. You could easily tuck in a few pops of color depending on the season. Easter eggs in the spring, bright flowers for summer, sunflowers for fall. It's a little way to keep the wreath feeling fresh all year without having to start from scratch. Honestly, I thought this DIY might feel too simple to show, but I really love how it turned out. It's a small, elegant accent that adds life and texture to a wall, door, or shelf. And it's proof that a few well-chosen pieces can completely change the feel of a space. This next piece is a little different because it's actually something I've had for years, but seeing similar ones pop up in high-end stores made me want to take another look at mine and give it a refresh. Lately, I've been noticing decorative mailboxes showing up on sites like Magnolia and Pottery Barn, especially in those warm brass tones, and it reminded me of this one I picked up at a flea market probably 25 years ago. I've never actually used it outside. I've always styled it inside my home, usually near the front door as a decorative piece. More recently, I've been using it in my kitchen to hold little things for my orchids like plant food, clips, that kind of thing. It's one of those pieces that's surprisingly versatile. If I had the space, I would even use it in the bathroom to hold toiletries and hand towels, especially with the hooks, but for now, it works perfectly where I have it. Mine was originally silver, and after seeing those warmer brass versions, I felt like it needed a little update. So I took some gold paint, mixed a bit of burnt umber to tone it down, give it more of that aged brass look, then brushed it on and let it dry. And that simple change made such a difference. It still has that same character I've always loved, but for now it feels a little more current and blends in beautifully with everything else. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next Saturday.